Brother Farouk, thank you so much for coming to the show.
To be in these places at the time that. So yeah, I'm in the right place at the right time.
Because hear what happened now. I told you the Jamaican accent was gonna come out. I'd love to be able to name all the bands, and I can. But I know I'm gonna miss.
You've been called selfless, you've been called kind, loving, all kinds of stuff. We know you're passionate about. Talk about your little 10-month-old son. Yeah. Talk about that, your pride and joy, of course.
I love my son. His name is Jawari, and he was born on Christmas Day.
Wow. Loughton, welcome to Peptalk.
Nice to be here. And you can call me Sarge.
I shall call you Sarge because Loughton is so not a Caribbean name, is it?
Well, I'm not sure. It has like a kind of British kind of connection in there. But Sarge is good. Sarge is good.
Okay, great. So, again, we're talking to Sarge. He is the executive director of DC Carnival, and he is the band leader of the Image Band.
Absolutely.
And I know you were born in Nevis. So I want to talk a little bit about growing up in the Caribbean and some of the incidences that shaped who you are today.
Absolutely. Well, I had a very interesting childhood growing up in the island of Nevis. Well, put it this way, I always kind of relate my upbringing as a Caribbean type of upbringing because as a young lad, cricket was always in my vein. That's the only sport I know. Music was always in my vein. But at the age of 10, I was involved in an accident that happened. It was a disaster on the ill-fated Christina, which is a ship that transport both people and cargo between both the islands of St. Kitts and Nevis. And on August 1st, 1970, at the age of 10, I was on that boat that went down. And hundreds of people perished. Yeah, and I was one of the fortunate survivors. There were only 90 survivors. And I was one of the younger survivors. But that incident shaped who I am today because out of that, I traveled from Nevis to St. Croix, Virgin Islands to live with my mom. And that's where I got my first start in playing music. I played the trumpet. And I got my first band when I was in 10th grade and continued playing cricket on a professional level. And after high school, I ended up in the United States. I came to Hampton University. And in Hampton, I continued playing my music and doing other things. I still played cricket. And after graduating from Hampton, I attended Old Dominion University, where I got my electrical engineering degree. And from there, I ended up in Washington, D.C. And funny enough, one of my first band that I started was back in high school was the Young Image Band.
It was called the Young Image Band.
Young Image Band, believe it or not. And my lead singer that sings with the Timmy was the drummer and the singer back then.
Really?
And the trombone player, Peter, was also a member of that band back in high school. So coming back to Washington, D.C. and joining the Image Band that had just started here, it was like a reunion of sorts.
Wow.
So it's unbelievable that, we can reflect back and say, wow, it seemed like it was all meant to be, and we didn't plan it that way, it just happened. And after settling in here in Washington, D.C., I joined a cricket club here called the Trinity's Cricket Club. We played a lot of cricket. We did a lot of music. I joined the Image Band, not as a trumpet player this time, but I converted into playing keyboards. I was never officially trained as a keyboardist. It so happened the band was going through a transition and needed a keyboard player.
And you learned to play the keyboard?
That's how I learned to play the keyboard in the Image Band.
How difficult was that for you to just learn the keyboard?
I always had a very good ear. In playing trumpet, and with trumpet you learn the semantics of music. You know music by the notes and the chords and whatever. So it was a lot easier playing the keyboards than playing the trumpet because it took a lot of energy, a lot of wind. Yeah, so that's where I am, and started playing the keyboard, and the Image Band took off in a whole different direction. That was in 1984. And then a few years later, a group of Caribbean leaders here in Washington, D.C. decided that we needed to get involved in bringing Carnival to the nation's capital, because we used to travel everywhere, Canada, New York, Miami, Atlanta. All these cities had Carnival, but we didn't have anything here in Washington, D.C. So out of that, it was 11 of us from different local Caribbean organizations who decided to get together, and we started the DC Caribbean Carnival in 1993.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Image Band before we transition into DC Caribbean Carnival. How many members are in the band? Because I was told it's one of the biggest reggae bands in this area. Is that so? How many members you have?
Yeah, well, I mean, I consider the band not just specifically reggae, but a Caribbean band.
Caribbean band.
Yeah, because we play various forms of Caribbean music. The full group is 12 of us. 12. And the reason, as you know, we have a full horn section, which is very rare. You don't see bands with horns anymore. We have 3 singers up front. We have female singer. We have a rapper, or DJ as you call him, and then you have Timmy, the lead singer. Yeah, so we have a pretty diverse group, not just Caribbean musicians, but international. We have our drummer is from Ghana, Kweku. Our saxophone player Daryl is from Kentucky. Who else? We have the bass player, guitar player, they're from Grenada. The trombone player Peter is from Antigua. Marge is from Antigua, the female vocalist. Timmy is from St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. Claude Richards is from St. Croix, Virgin Islands. John George's trumpet player, he's from St. Thomas also. So we have guys from all over, but we've been together. The core of the band has been together since 1986. 1986. The core of the band, but you have members who've been there from the beginning. Timmy has been there from the beginning. Wayne Roebuck, who is the manager, he's been there from the beginning. Peter has been there from the late 70s, early 80s. I came back on the scene in 1984. So I've been in it for the last 28 years. And what would you say is the secret to that band sticking together even for just a core? Because from all the conversations I've had tonight, it seems like even a smaller band has issues with keeping, say, a 5-piece. And you're talking about 12 people, and you're saying most of the core people are kept together over the years. What do you think is the secret to that? Well, we have been together now. This is our 34th year. We're going to be celebrating 35 years next year. And I think the main fact that we're like a family. We all love music. We all are pretty settled in the area, so it's not like you have movement where folks are moving around. So, and you know, we love to get together and play music. We love Caribbean music. We love music just in general, and that keep the band glued in terms of making sure that every year we have a goal. Like for example, we travel to the Virgin Islands every December for the last 23 years. So from January to November to December, we plan for that trip, and we come back and we start over again. You know, we enjoy entertaining folks. We enjoy making people happy. So you know, it's just in the vein. Music. It's just in the vein. Yeah. And I know that typically when they're having any major events in the Washington D.C. area, and even sometimes out of Washington D.C., Image Band is a very in-demand band. What kind of promotions have you done over the course of your career to get you the band that most people seem to gravitate towards, especially for Caribbean functions? Well, believe it or not, we don't put a lot of energy into the promotion, but I think what it is, over the years, we have set a standard in terms of what we present. And like a lot of the bigger events, like the balls and, you know, festivals like that, for some reason, Image Band creates an excitement and a kind of performing energy that brings people in and make people do, you know, put your hands in the air or wave or whine or party. We have that kind of energy that people tend to enjoy and gravitate to. So every year we look forward to certain gigs. We've been doing a number of gigs for 20 plus years consistently every year that they ask for the band, because, you know, we have developed that following, we've developed that reputation that this is the band that keeps the party going, that, you know, keep people happy. So awesome. And when I'm in a party with Image Band, I am happy too. So we're going to ask you to just give that information about the band, and then we're going to take a break, and when we come back,
we're going to have that hot topic that everyone wants to know about.
All right.
What is going on with DC Caribbean Carnival? So how can they get more information on Image Band?
Well, on Image Band, we have Facebook. You can check us out on Facebook, Image Band. We have our website, imageband.com, which will actually link you to our Facebook site, or actually MySpace site. And we also have our Twitter, Image Band on Twitter. So we out there, you know, you can find us. Just Google Image Band.
Just Google Image Band. And when we come back, we're going to ask you to Google DC Caribbean Carnival, because that's what we'll be talking about when we return after this break. We'll be right back.
West Indians, Europeans, Africans, Asians, Syrians, Latinos, everybody, where you come from? Where you from? Where you from? Where you come from? Show me your flag. Where you come from? Give me the wine. Give me the wine. Where you come from? Hey, we come from all over to the Americas, from our motherland to the.
And we are back. We are rapping with Sarge, my friend, who is the band leader of the Image Band and also the executive director of DC Caribbean Carnival, which seems to be the buzzwords on everybody's lips these days.
Absolutely.
Okay, so first of all, tell me about the formation of DC Caribbean Carnival. When did that start?
Well, we started in 1993. It was 11 individuals from various Caribbean organizations here in Washington, D.C. decided to come together because we were at a point, a kind of crossroads, where we go to all these major carnivals all over North America, and then we come back to Washington, D.C., and there's nothing here. So we formed a group, and we formed it as a non-profit incorporation where everybody that participates as members came in as volunteers. And we actually acquired our 501c3 status in 1995, but the first carnival occurred in 1993. And we set it up where it's always the last weekend in June in 1993. And within a year or two, we became like one of the greatest celebrated summer event in Washington, D.C. And out of the Caribbean Carnival, believe it or not, the idea of the Caribbean American Heritage Month
Really?
actually was born out of the Caribbean Carnival. It actually was the instrument that drove that movement.
I did not know that.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And actually, the way it's set up, as you see, the carnival always culminates the month of June. So.
Okay. So, I mean, it's such a big carnival that whenever I used to visit the States, before I started living in the States, I would always buck up on all these people I went to school with. Like, what are you doing here? It's DC Carnival and Georgia Avenue Ram.
Absolutely.
And all of these things. But was it always on Georgia Avenue? Because I'm a latecomer to this area.
Yes, it started on Georgia Avenue. And we actually, there was one year in 2001, actually 2003, sorry, where we actually moved it downtown.
Okay.
It was basically an idea that the city at the time thought that we probably should explore expanding the event downtown. But what happened, by moving it out of the community, it kind of lost its flavor. So we brought it right back the following year.
So at the peak of DC Caribbean Carnival, what is the estimated number of people that pass through at any given time?
Yeah, there have been a lot of numbers thrown around over the years. Sometimes you hear the 300,000, sometimes you hear 400,000. But we have never really got an exact estimate, because as you know, after 2005, when was the Million Man March, after that year, it seemed like there were some issues where estimates were questionable in terms of how we came up with figures. So out of that, the numbers game was kind of played down. So we never really got a good figure in terms of how many people. But we know there are thousands and thousands of people that come to that event every year.
Okay, so we know what's going on in the environment. There's a lot of stuff going on with DC Caribbean Carnival. There was stuff going on last year. I remember last year you had an effort where folks were sending stuff out to get support to have the carnival. And it seems like this year it's gotten worse. Now we're hearing that there might not be a carnival.
Right.
What's the problem? Why is that happening?
Okay, well, let me give you a brief history, because there's been a lot of speculations and a lot of rumors, like, how we got here, what happened. So I can just take you back, just a little back, just to tell you how the carnival actually was able to sustain for 18 years.
Okay.
And then what happened, what caused the problem we've been encountering the last few years. Now, when we started this event back in 1993, it started out as a small event. And by 1994, it had grown into one of the bigger street festivals in the city. But what we had going with the event at the time, and we know that the parade was a free event.
Right.
That brings people to the city. It brings, in our estimate at the time, it brought a lot more to the city than just people partying. It was an economic boost to the depressed Georgia Avenue corridor at the time.
Exactly.
And the city administrations over the years have seen this as a benefit to the community, and they have supported it.
Okay.
Especially with the services, some of the services that the city have offered, especially the Metropolitan Police Service, which is one of the bigger line items to cover this event.
Exactly.
So over the years, we have always gotten assistance from the city, whether through grants or other form of support to cover those services, specifically Metropolitan Police Services. Now, in 2010, we got caught up in a situation where we were given a grant, or when I say given, we got the letter to say you were approved for a grant. It was a $150,000 grant that will cover security and crowd control, which is actually Metropolitan Police. And in the middle of planning Carnival that year, the grant was rescinded. And this was not just our grant, there was grants across the board was rescinded that year. So it put us in a situation where everything was already in place. You had contracts already signed to execute the carnival. So we went along with the carnival knowing that this grant was rescinded, but we also got caught up in the middle of the mayoral campaign, same year. So all 2010. At the end of 2010 Carnival, there was an additional bill that was given to us by MPD because the parade ran over 3 extra hours. And most of you guys will remember seeing a lot of write up in the paper that the politicians actually had hijacked the DC Carnival for their own personal benefits. So we ended up facing the consequences of that. So coming in from 2010 into 2011, there was a deficit.
Okay.
And that's where the effort that you're talking about, where there was some effort that said save DC Carnival, please donate. That was in 2011.
Right.
Now, that effort, in terms of the public appeal to donate and help us, it was not successful. Because as you know, what happened, after we put out the word that, we need financial help, a few weeks after that, we were given the green light to kind of proceed with revised carnival, a revised form where they had cut the parade route in half. We didn't get the type of support that we normally will get with sponsors and supporters, because here it is now, you're cutting the parade in half. That means you're eliminating half of the parade route that we normally had for 18 years. And most of us know what happened at the end of the parade last year. There was a community outcry where folks were very disappointed. The parade was over very early. So folks that came off, for example, in the middle of the route, which is Georgia and New Hampshire, you came out of the metro at 1:30 and there was nothing there. The parade was gone, it was over. And then at the end of the entire event now, there was an incident that involved the shooting, and that event was again, through the news media, was aligned to the carnival. Again, very unfortunate. It didn't have anything to do with the carnival, but it so happened that it happened at the same day. It happened in close proximity to where the parade was, because the parade was long gone when it happened. So it didn't help the cause. So coming into 2012 now, you had the issue of now the additional bills from the Metropolitan Police Service. And believe it or not, the bill for 2011, even though it was a shorter parade route, 50% shorter, was more than what the bill was in 2009, 2010.
So you didn't get a grant last year?
No, there was, because as you remember, coming into 2011, the grant which was rescinded in 2010, that was pretty much the end of the support from the city in terms of that magnitude. But what we did, which was actually asked of us, was to conduct an economic impact study that can show the city administration the benefit of this event to the city. And we actually went out on the line and we did it. We had Howard University to conduct an independent study for us to show the benefit of this carnival, which it was done, and we received a report in December of last year, which was presented to the city. But I guess the study alone was not convincing because we didn't get any positive feedback from the city about it. All we got was the fact that there was an outstanding bill from the part of 2010 into 2011, and that this bill has to be paid before the city can issue any approval to move forward with the event.
Okay.
And that's where we are in terms of where the confusion started.
So this is where you are now. You owe the city a whole bag of money.
Right. So at the end of the day, the city there's a big bill here that says you owe this money, and before you can move forward and get approval, this money has to be paid.
Right. And have you reached out to anyone, anywhere? You know, you've had a lot of traffic throughout the years.
Absolutely.
Many people are disheartened that this carnival might not happen. Have you done something similar to last year in terms of trying to get an appeal, being open and honest with the public about this is where we are, how can you save DC Carnival?
Actually, and we did that. Now here's where this came in. It was not as early as the effort last year because, again, we were actually putting a lot of investment in terms of reaching out to the business community. We actually walked the Georgia Avenue corridor, business by business, telling them our challenges and to ask for support. And the majority of the businesses, they love it. They don't want it to leave. They really think it's the best event for them. But I guess, you know, giving us a small donation, maybe it's too much because I don't know, for whatever reason. They just love it, but they don't support us.
Okay.
That's number one. Number two, we did our normal effort by September. We usually put out requests for sponsorship, which we did. We actually applied for 2 grants through the DC Arts and Humanities. We've done that. We consistently encourage folks to donate on our website. We do have a donate link where you can go and for some reason it's been, I guess it's the climate we're in, all of the effort that we have had has been very, very, very challenging in terms of raising the type of money. But again, I'm very much convinced to say that because of the nature of this event where you have a huge parade that's free, we don't make any money from the parade.
Right.
The only funds that this carnival make is when we have at the end of the parade we have a festival, and the monies that are made from the festival is to cover the smaller services like DCRA, DPW, some of DPW, but generally DOH, which is Department of Health, fire and emergency, those kind of services. But the bigger bills, which like Metropolitan Police, is practically impossible for us to raise that type of money to cover those bills.
And we know that those bills are huge. So unless you're saying without getting like a grant that you've gotten in the past, you pretty much can't do it. So right now, as it stands today.
So here's where we are at.
Yeah.
We have had organizations such as CPAC, the Caribbean Political Action Committee, who's been batting for us. They've been there with us. They've known the challenges that we've had from day one moving into where we are at now, but to no avail. So we are at a crossroads now where we had to make a decision that, okay, we are now heading into May, and we are still at a standstill in terms of how we move forward. What do we do? So what we have decided to do for this year, we're going to still continue the effort to work out the issues with the city and hopefully to to get things back on track for 2013. But for 2012, to salvage what we have and to still give the band leaders an opportunity to showcase their costumes and everything else, we will still host a series of programs here in the area. We will have the judging of the costumes, the Panjam that we normally have on the same weekend, June 23rd, 24th. A lot of the promoters who have been hosting parties every year, they're still moving forward with their parties. But the parade for this year, we have elected to accept an invitation from Baltimore to join them this year to host the parade in Baltimore. So that's where we are.
That's where we are.
Yeah.
DC Carnival parade will not be on Georgia Avenue. There's no DC Carnival parade this year on Georgia Avenue. You heard that on Pep Talk. You heard that from, I won't call you the horse's mouth, but my friend Sarge just said that. And so those of you who insist on doing the Carnival Revelry, you shall join it with Baltimore Carnival. And it's the same date. Is it?
No.
What's the date for that?
I'm going to give you the date.
Okay.
Because of the late planning, and again, the date of June 23rd, 24th, which is in DC, the parade would not be on that day. The date would be July 14th, 15th for the parade. So you can make adjustment. I'm sorry for those who have already made arrangement for parade here in DC, but you can still come out. Don't change your plans. There's still a lot of activities to enjoy here in Washington, DC on the 23rd and 24th. But on July 14th, 15th, we will be taking the parade to Baltimore. Now, I have a situation to elaborate on before we leave in reference to the DC Carnival, because I've been thinking about this seriously. Over the last few years, you've been receiving complaints that we have been ill-treated on the parade route by the Metropolitan Police. We have been pushed, raced off the street. We have had helicopters flying above, horses protruding through the parade, motorcycles clearing us off the road. It's basically like a protest, and this is a festival, and we are peaceful people. So I'm saying in a normal, regular scenario where there are no issues with money, there are no issues in terms of challenges moving forward with plans, how would then we address these same concerns that keep happening over and over again? And so the bottom line is that there are a lot of finger pointing in terms of why we are where we're at. But at the end of the day, the same complaints that we've been getting over and over and over in reference to the treatment that we receive as Caribbean folks on the day of the event, the timing of the event, because it's now cut short. We don't enjoy the amenities that we had in the past. Those are not going to go away. Those are going to be there. So how do we address those? I think those are the bigger questions that we should be seeking answers to, along with the money. But even if there's no money issue, how do we address those issues?
Okay. Well, I'm sure that's a tall order for you and your committee to think about. But another thing to think about also is maybe what you need to do in light of all of those issues that you have is really seriously thinking about joining forces with Baltimore Carnival. Because it's one area. Absolutely. They say the DMV and is, DC, Maryland, Virginia. So that might be a quick fix this year, but it's something that you guys should possibly think about taking forward. Because, you're combining stuff. There's a separation, Baltimore over here and DC down the street, and you have it in June and they have it in July. You're competing for the same sponsorship. So maybe now is the time for you to work collaboratively.
Well, we will actually look at it carefully. Let's see how things work out this year.
Let's see how things work out this year.
And then, we can move forward with that.
And we love that. And on that note, we're going to end this wonderful conversation. Sarge, thank you so much for your honesty.
Yes.
Thank you for dispelling all the rumors and all the things that are flying out there around in the universe when people don't know because they're not hearing it directly. So please still find a way to visit. Is it DCCaribbeanCarnival.com?
Yeah, it's DCCaribbeanCarnival.org.
.org.
There's no .com. Or DCCarnival.org.
Okay. DCCarnival.org, and then find out how you can get involved. And as Sarge said, there's still going to be some of the events that they typically have, just not the parade on Georgia Avenue. We're sorry to break your heart, but that's how it goes. So until we meet again on another show, keep it locked to Pep Talk. Take care.